It has left us extremely incapacitated. And it has brought to the fore the basic problem of Nigeria. Now, COVID by itself has shown to the whole country our incapacity to look after ourselves. Only yesterday, I heard from the Lagos state government that new cases of COVID now, some have to be made to stay at home rather than to come to isolation centers because the isolation centers are full. Now, this Lagos is symptomatic of what is happening in the rest of the country. Our testing capacity is low. Our ability to cope with an upsurge is completely absent. And this health sector is just an indication of what the rest of Nigeria is like. Look, it was not always like this. When we gained independence, our country was a very strong country. At independence, we were progressing faster than China, faster than Indonesia, faster than Singapore. Our export earnings from our basic agricultural produce was the mainstay of our economy. In the north, granite pyramids hit the air, cotton mills hit the air, vegetable, cattle, and what have you. In the west, cocoa was in abundant supply and exported and facilitated educational development of no mean degree. In the east and the Midwest, farm produce was exported and became the necessary income and revenue for the industrial revolution of the Southeast. Today, the situation is not the same. Our country's economic indices are extremely discouraging. Right now, we are not even attractive to the world. That foreign domestic investment in Nigeria has decreased from 5 billion in 2014 to $2 billion today. Unemployment has risen from 6% in 2014 to 23% in 2018. Inflation has increased from 8% to 11% over the same period. Growth of GDP has fallen from 6% 6 years ago to 2% 2 years ago, after it recovered from a recession. The non-oil sector, which should have been our fallback given today's development, has maintained the no change situation. The non-oil sector to GDP growth has been at a steady portion of 4% since 2014 to now. Under the circumstance, what we have is a gloomy situation. Now, we have a country which is the greatest producer of cassava in the whole world, and yet we import ethanol. And yet we are unable to export sufficient starch production to command the starch market in the world. We have a country which is the second largest grower of tomatoes in Africa, but we are the third largest importer of tomato period. We have a country which is the third largest grower of cattle in Africa, and we are the biggest importer of milk in Africa. We have a country which is the sixth largest producer of crude oil in the world, but we import our refined crude oil products of petrol, diesel, and kerosene, and pay so much subsidy in order to equilibrate the price to be affordable to the ordinary Nigerian. Our states are economically unviable. According to budget report, only 4 states in Nigeria have average revenue in excess of average monthly expenditure. And only 9 states have internal generated revenue sufficient to cover interest repayments on their loans. Now, up until now, we have depended on oil and refused to diversify our economy. This dependence has left us gaping with COVID-19. We have seen how the price of oil has fluctuated. But even if there was a return to business all over the world, and we came back to $50-something a barrel of oil, it will only be a short-lived tenure. Why? Because, number one, other sources of energy abound in the world today. And other sources of energy other than crude oil source, or what you may call fossil oil source, in the last 4 years have accounted for a majority of installed power machines in the world. In the last 2 years, the demand for cars powered by non-oil sources, namely electrical cars, in China, Europe, and America have outstripped the demand for cars based on fossil oil. In other words, in the next 10 years, those demanding for fuel for their cars would probably no longer need petrol, and that will dent seriously our capacity to depend on oil as a source of revenue. Shale oil in America has grown exponentially, putting America to the capacity of 12 million barrels of crude oil a day, and completely independent of external supply. Saudi Arabia has about 9.8 million barrels of crude oil a day, and it is now investing $110 billion to develop 200 trillion of cubic feet of wet gas as another source of energy. In the United States, there is something they call perovskite. This has the capacity to turn sun energy into energy. And in the next few years, this will be invading the power supply market with great capacity to make us useless. Now, today, UNESCO says that about 12 million Nigerian children between the ages of 5 and 11 are roaming our streets without any education. Right now, our political parties are like companies owned by shareholders, where there is no freedom to choose candidates, where there is no transparency in nomination processes. So there is no young man out there who has ideas, like Chief Awolowo, Dr. Azikiwe, or Sir Ahmadu Bello, all of blessed memory, and may their souls rest in peace, had yesterday and could dare to go to the political arena and offer themselves for service. You have to have a godfather to win a nomination to enter any of the legislative houses or any of the executive houses in the states. Our electoral system is the most corrupt an election, and the adjudication of the judiciary and the results of the election lasts up to 1 year. And in the process, our judiciary is corrupt. In the process, our policemen break into polling booths and cut away polling ballot papers, and in the daylight, and recorded by cameras, and nobody arrests anybody, and nobody does anything about it. It is very often noticed in Nigeria that people lose elections but still win because their names were recorded as winners. The average confidence of the Nigerian in the electoral process is gone, to make matters worse, and which is where the kernel of the matter is. Our country is resting on an illegal constitution, a constitution that in legal parlance lacks autonomy. We never made a constitution for Nigeria. It was given to us by a military government, which was not elected. The composition of its legislative body was not chosen by any parameter known to anybody. They wrote a constitution and abandoned the agreement that our forefathers had with the British when we got independence for a regional-based government, in which every region had its own security, its own economic development, its own sovereignty over its national resources, and paid taxes to the federal government to run common services for the federation. But today, it's no longer the case. Look at our security situation. Boko Haram has dug a big hole in our national budget. It has completely paralyzed our military and rendered them incapable to fulfill their constitutional duty of defending our sovereignty. Mutual distrust between the South and the North, and I mean the far North, excluding the Middle Belt, has become so pronounced that walking through your farms in any part of southern Nigeria or the Middle Belt becomes a very frightening phenomenon. Our children who take up to self-determination exercises in the South without carrying an arm are called terrorist organizations. But headsmen who rampage, loot, kill, maim are treated with kid gloves. And their leaders threaten us in the social media. And they go unscathed. Where I come from in the Southeast, where I have the opportunity to serve them, 98% of heads of security personnel here are non-indigenous of the Southeast. Well, many of our soldiers and policemen and security men go for training in civilized countries. Some of us on this panel were trained in Europe and America. And we know that in the global balance today, local policing is the basis for policing any territory. You have to know your local territory. You have to speak the language in order to be the chief police constable. But they post people in our country who do not know the terrain of the place. They cannot speak the language, and they look like people who are posted to superintend the colonial arrangement. This situation is threatening the very fabric of our nation. This is why I'm very happy to be part of the Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum, which is saying we do not have a valid constitution in Nigeria. We've got to restructure this federation and return to a constitution that is attached on us, a constitution made by the people, a constitution that has a plebiscite voted for by the people. We have to have a proper census of Nigerians, and not Nigerians who cross our borders and go to our national identity offices and claim nationhood when they have no parentage in this country. I do not know if I've exceeded my time, Mr. Moderator, but I'm willing to re-engage if you re-invite me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a very quite direct to the point. So obviously you're coming back and you will be re-engaged. Let's have other speakers. Then when the questions come, then we'll direct the questions to you. So we will be having the second speaker now, Ayo Adebanjo. I think you're on mute. Can you try and see if you can unmute yourself, sir? Okay, yes. Adebanjo, now you are on spotlight. Go ahead. Thank you very much. And once more, welcome to this conversation this evening, sir. You are now on.
Thank you very much. I should first of all thank you for organizing this conference. And I'm not going to repeat all that Chido Onumah has said. All I have to say, I 100% concur.
I've read all those participating. Put me back on the picture so that you can see.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I don't like that. Well, I don't know. So the problem in this country is what he has elaborated. Coronavirus has only come to emphasize the awkwardness of our government. And I think if we are really serious about keeping this country together and making progress, it is time to restructure the country back to true federalism as we had it at independence. On this score, I think I have to elaborate on what Chido Onumah has said, because some of the opponents of restructuring, like Takoya Kasai, I listened to him. He said he doesn't understand what is restructuring. And that those who are talking of restructuring should tell us what they mean. And I'm sure it is in this country, all the clamoring have been made in my own interview, in my own instruction. I have been emphasizing that those who don't understand what restructuring is, they should go and read the 1963 Constitution. And I trace it back to the Constitution we are asking for, is what Chief Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello, and Sardauna, and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe handed over to us at independence. And that agreement was made in 1954, after the collapse of the district government that was introduced by McPherson. The whole country was sent back to London by Los Shandos and asked all the leaders to talk about what was the cause of the crisis at that time. Because the crisis fell on the one that Awolowo told them that an heterogeneous society like ours cannot be ruled as a uniform form of government. And when the collapse came, Lord Chancellor, the then colonial secretary, invited all the leaders of the government. They were then elected the present leaders into London. What is your problem? It was at that conference, to the credit of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was a unitarist, that Chief Awolowo explained to them that if we really want to keep this country together, we must have to go back to federalism. On the satisfaction of that explanation, on return to Nigeria, Dr. Azikiwe said federalism was imperative. What do you mean by that? It is just the autonomy of the federated states, the liberty to develop at our own space, unlike what we now have. And for the information of people like Takoya Kasai, when he said he doesn't understand what it means, there was nothing in our constitution that created 177 and 74 local government in the country, with the majority in the north, minority in the south, and basing the number of local government on the way we are going to distribute our revenue. That was the beginning of the fraud. And when you hear people from South and South to say, no, let's keep our income. Let us develop, let us earn our money and spend it and contribute to the federal government on a typically federal constitution. That is what is happening in America. We said no, and they agreed. It was at that conference that the question of revenue on derivation basis was agreed to. And they came back in 1954 to establish the base for federalism. It was from that on we went on to independence. And what we have there, under that constitution we had, which we are now agitating for, that each federated unit should be autonomous to the extent that each unit had a representative abroad. And I gave an example of the Western region, which Awolowo led at that time. He established a foreign embassy in London under that constitution to show his independence. It was ridiculed, but later on, the other regions followed. And we were the first to establish that embassy at 14A Kensington Palace Gardens in London. Federal government followed. Northern government followed. Eastern government followed. And I have the joy to say it is that embassy in London in 1960 that I got married by the agent general who was representing Western region to show the autonomy. But now, as a result of our independence, Chief Awolowo was able to do a lot of development in the Western region. The free education, free medical services, road development, the first television in Africa, and on no occasion did he go to Balewa to ask for 1 penny subsidy as we are now. We are having now video bottle economics now. Every state that go to Abuja to go for the allocation, which it ought not to be. Under a really federal constitution, that is to be taken for granted. You have your money, you find a way of getting more money for yourself and have to spend it. And you agreed on 50% to the federal government for all the subjects you allocated the federal government in the interest of the federation. That was all. That was how we had peace. Our Shibaolo under the system, build Liberty Stadium, Ahmadu Bello built Liberty Ahmadu Bello Stadium. Okpara did a lot of agricultural development, and on and on. But when these military people came, I want to refer to it that this is not our constitution. We have been repeating it and they never denied it. It is an imposed constitution by the Muslim military of the North. Nobody contributed to it. And I often refer to the fact that when General Obasanjo was going to be installed, after the civilian rule, Absalom said he didn't know what was in that constitution before he sworn in. So each time we asked him to change the constitution and organize a sovereign national conference, he said, no, I can't change because I am woven to the constitution to which I swore to. And I said, which constitution you swore to? Do you know what was there? This is the situation we're having. As a result, there's unrest in South because the people who have given us the money, there is no development there. At that time, the income of each region was their own. The Western region had the privilege of having the income from cocoa. The Eastern region through palm kernel, the Northern region through granite. And we are at peace. The local government, the police, and security, as Nnia Nwodo said, we're all autonomous and we are living in peace. This was what we had on, and all the development Nwodo was referring to during the First Republic that we compare with other regions was under the constitution. Military came in 1966 and changed the whole thing. And the bullied is country from the center downwards. And nobody can say anything to the contrary. The whole thing now is you either agree with the end of the year. And unfortunately, our head of state is not a listening government. And I will say, without any hesitation, we are only deceiving ourselves. President Buhari is not sincere about keeping this country together. And that's why we're having this problem. That is why he's putting square peg in round holes. That is why we tell you, keep to the constitution by your appointment. You say, no, I can only work with people who do I have confidence, which is against the constitution under the federal character. And the whole country was talking about it, it just turned deaf ears. You can go to places, I never addressed anybody. This question of restructuring, we have been on for over 5 years now. And throughout the time it has been there. The leaders. What is that direction coming from, please?
Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Can you please stop this? Disturb me. I don't know
Yes,
why it's when
sorry.
I'm talking.
We're really sorry about that. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Now, all these arrangements that we are talking of, he has never found an occasion to say, this is my reaction. Even his military colleagues have now agreed we should restructure. All his predecessors have agreed. All the political leaders have agreed. Even his party have agreed. And yet, our man who is to rule us, who says he's sincere, that's why I say he's not sincere. He has a private program. He has a program of his own. So if you can have the authorities of outside world or anybody to persuade Buhari, look into the question of peace in this country. We can never have peace in this country until you restructure the country back for federalism. And for the education of Tanko Yakasai, restructuring is not a philosophy. It is a way of rebuilding the constitution back to federalism. Because when they say those who are talking about restructuring, what do they mean? It's a sort of pretense because he was a parliamentary secretary under Balewa. What constitution was that? And he was present at 2014 National Conference when we agreed on these things. He didn't say what was what. So there is no sincerity among the leaders of the North, particularly the far North, in the question of keeping this country together. And when people like me talk about the unity of this country, I have gone through it. That is why Tanko Yakasai surprises me. He was one of the progressive under Aminu Kanu, opposing Ghana's conservatism. But now I don't know what has happened. And that's why people even say that any far northern, either Fulani or something, they have a private agenda. It was a progressive. But here we are. Now let us sit down together. I don't want to lose my friend from the North. Many of them have been there. He is one. They will agree. But that guy is another. The late MD Yusuf is another. There's no hatred or bitterness against others at all. All we want is, we want a constitution under which everybody is satisfied that there is no injustice. Once there is injustice, there can be no peace. When there is no peace, no equity, there can be no development. All of that things we are doing now is to play up to the individual. And it's the same as encourages corruption. And as Nwodo said, we are going to have democracy in the country when the party that is going to rule the country is not democratic. Right now, they want to do election in Ondo and they ask the government to come and deposit 22 billion for an extension of interest. How do you have that for that is party contribution, not the cost of the election? Which means election, a billionaire, you cannot contest the election. However qualified, however economic page you have, if your pocket is not deep, you can't contest elections. That's a democracy. We have government now where constitutionalism is put aside. Our head of state obeys the government that he likes. And then he believes that you are not doing the right thing, he sacks you. There's no respect for the judiciary. Question of separation of power? No. My dear sir, the only thing I think we should do, if anybody is interested in the progress and unity of this country, peaceably, I have to emphasize that. Because people pay lip service to the unity of the country. When they are doing things that will not make peace. And there's no peace, no equity, there can be no equity, there can be no agreement, there can be no peace. So I will apply, I will plead with Buhari to join good work, the loving citizens of this country to sit down. We don't want the country to break. The critics of restructuring often say, oh, you have to restructure, you have to break the country. Who wants to break the country? A person like me? 50% of my life has been built on the question of the United Country. In 1979, I spent over 1 year in the Northeast, where there's Boko Haram now, fighting for the Unity Party of Nigeria. I have set my Western region. And so also all the leaders of the Unity Party went all over the country because we want the country together. Not the unity of the horse and the rider. It is the unity where the Lord will pay the rider and will be the horse. So this is what is causing disrespect or disunity or disharmony in the country. It's a simple matter. If Buhari is serious about keeping this country together in peace, not by force, what is wrong when I tell you, Mr. President, are you wiser, more intelligent, more Fulani than Saudana that agreed to this constitution as independence? Are you more educated? If all these questions cannot be answered in the negative, why can't you go back to what the forefathers give us? And when we talk of going back to 1960 constitution, we are not necessarily saying go back to 4 regions or 3 regions. Those are matters of details. But the contents of the power in the regions there is what we want to be given to the federative units. We can be independent and keep one. We have regional autonomy under the federal system, just as we have in Africa. But under this constitution, you have drawn a lot of inequalities. You mago the election, the population. It is in our own country now where the nearer the desert, the greater population. Not in America, not in Australia, not in New Zealand. It is only in Nigeria where the nearer the desert, the more the population.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful contribution. Let us not lose sight. The question remains, how can we utilize this COVID-19? Is the political structure working, or is COVID-19 presenting us with an opportunity to review the system? On that note, Pa Ayo Adebanjo, very much once more, thank you for your wonderful contribution. For every participant and viewers, please get your questions ready. We will get to the segment where we will take your questions and they will answer your question. So if your question is directed to any of our guest speakers, then they can take them. Now I don't know if he's logged on with a different device. We're going to call upon Dr. Bitrus Pogo. I don't know if Dr. Bitrus Pogo is here with us. Dr. Bitrus Pogo, if you're here with us, please can you raise up your hand in the chat section so we can identify you if you're not with your name. I cannot see you here, Dr. Pogo. Okay, while we are waiting for Dr. Pogo, I would want to give Yinka Odumakin, some 5 minutes to make a contribution. And while Yinka is doing that, Ankyo Briggs, thank you once more for joining us. Ankyo Briggs can get ready another 5 minutes, then we can take general questions. Unless we find out that Pogo is in here. I cannot find him from the list of attendees. Yinka, can you try to unmute your device, please? Having some difficulties. Yinka, once more, can you try to unmute your device? Okay. Okay. If we're having that.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I've listened to our leaders, so we work together, and I've listened to them over and over again. And they have stated it. COVID-19 has come to expose us for what we are in Nigeria. When the Secretary of the Government of Nigeria came on television and said, I'm not aware that Nigerian health situation is this bad. Like Dr. Miko will say, what we conversate on Nigeria today that we don't even have, that an average state has only 5, that many states don't have anything. It's nothing different from what blacksmiths are using, you know, to blow air when they are working. Is that bad for us? As we are speaking today, for you guys in the diaspora, what you are remitting from now is more now than what you are generating from oil and gas under COVID. We have also discovered that what you are now making from VAT is more than what you are making from oil and gas, which is very clear that today we cannot continue to live our life the way we are living it. It is important for us to also know that
I think you're mute.
Yinka, something happened. Can you check your device? You've gone on mute.
Please unmute him if you can.
Okay, I have. Yinka, oh, I've done. If I do that, he goes back again.
okay. So where we are today, it is clear that we cannot continue to live on just oil and gas. Unfortunately, we have finished oil and gas for the South. I don't know what we want them to live on now, but it's clear that we have to recalibrate. We have to reset Nigeria. When you say restructure, let us reset. Let's start afresh. With the era of oil and gas, one product, all of us living on it, and then we are all the corruption, everything going on based on oil and gas, that cannot continue. And we have to go back to the board to ensure that we go to every part of Nigeria and bring out the resources. And when we bring out the resources, of course, we have to compensate Niger Delta because we have sucked that place dry. And now oil now means nothing in this world. Like Chido said, we're going to have cars now that don't even need oil. And in that world, where do you want to be? So I think COVID-19 is an awakening to let us know that the life that we have lived all along is not the life we should live. And we should therefore, at this stage, recalibrate, make sure that we work in Nigeria, and we can no longer be sending and marching to the South. Because all over the years, we have told you that demography is dangerous. But because we just say, oh, we have more people, we have more this, we want to share more money, and the rest of them, you are raising, breeding Almajiri, use them for elections. Now that there's not much more oil money to share, you are now throwing them south in trailers, in trucks, all kinds of things. That is going on today. That cannot continue.
Okay.
And the Southern and Middle, that's what I've spoken, that we cannot allow that to continue. You can, I mean, these are not expatriates, these are not workers, these are who no skills, they have no addresses, they are going to do. That cannot continue.
Thank you very much.
That's my contribution.
Thank you very much. So on this note, we're going to bring Ankyo Briggs. Please, you are now on. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Definitely, I agree every bit of what Chief Nwodo has said, every bit of what Adebanjo has said. Actually, listening to Yinka and listening to Adebanjo, it took me back to the 2014 National Conference. Because everything that has gone on since 2015 in this country, and the injustice, okay, of how positions to press things, we had foreseen them and we had discussed them, especially in the committee that I was fortunate enough to be part of, where all the great people, all the great men across Nigeria, from Adebanjo to Alhaji Yakasaya, was part of this committee. And we have found ourselves in a position where my people and I believe at this point that as much as restructuring is the best option if we want to keep Nigeria together, I believe that we in the Niger Delta have come to a point where, quite honestly, we believe that President Buhari and every other person that has gone along with his style of government will never accept restructuring, no matter how much we want it, and no matter how much we believe it is the way forward. Therefore, I call on my people, and I've been saying this for years now, of the South-South region, and also the whole Southern region, to actually begin to approach our discussion with this government and any other subsequent government before we find a solution. But I want to believe that we must find a solution before, we must take a position before the end of 2020. And that means that we must start from the position of how do we begin to discuss a disengagement? Because if we continue to be saying we want the country to be restructured, when we know fully well that the desire to restructure the country is only coming from the southwest, the Yorubas, is only coming from the southeast, the Ndibu, and is only coming from the middle belt and the Niger Delta that have a lot of ethnic nationalities in the Niger Delta. We really must say to ourselves that the restructuring will not take place. We have to accept that, because 4 years have gone since Buhari came, and people, elders like Tanko Yakasaya are saying they don't understand what it means. And when it suits Elder Tanko Yakasaya, he says that he believes in the 1963 Constitution. And when it suits him, he gives the impression on the other way that he doesn't understand the 1963 Constitution, because, as Adebanjo has said, if you believe in the 1963 Constitution, then you must understand what restructuring means, because that is a restructured, that was how we started. So quite honestly, I understand I appreciate when people say, oh, the oil is finished. Well, whether the oil is finished or not, the Niger Delta people, the Robos, the Shekiris, the Ikweres, the Ogonis, the Ijos, we have to survive, because we were surviving before crude oil. They were stealing crude oil before they even told us that we had crude oil. And so we have to survive. And if we have to survive without crude oil, so be it. If we have to start afresh without crude oil, so be it. But that we will sit down in a community like where I come from, in Abonima, by the mouth of the Atlantic Ocean. And there are people, I don't know where they are from. I don't understand the language they speak. I don't know who they are. And they are taking over, they are living in my community. I don't know what they are saying. I don't know what they are planning. And so if we continue to give the impression, the South, the whole of the South, if we continue to give the impression that we are more prepared than anybody else to keep Nigeria together of Nigeria, we must reach a point where we have to say that we can start afresh. It's like a woman who is in a terrible marriage and has 3 children, 2 children, and she has to decide at some point, will she die in this marriage or will she start afresh as a single mother? And COVID-19 has shown that the states can be on their own. we've always known that anyway. It's not because of oil or gas. We've always known that we can be on our own. It is the insistence by even our own leaders and fathers today that Nigeria, oh, we cannot break Nigeria because, and please, I do not believe, and a lot of my people do not believe, that God put Nigeria together. God did not put Nigeria together. Lugard put Nigeria together. And I do not believe that Nigeria must continue to stay in the circumstances that we have found ourselves in. We, from the Niger Delta region, at this point, cannot actually believe that we have anything left to lose. There is nothing. We have nothing left to lose. We've been governed with fear. We've been governed with oppressive military government, and now oppressive civilian democratic government. Today, the situation we find ourselves in, I think it is worse than when Abacha was in power. It is worse than when Babangida, you can't compare Babangida's time, as bad as it was, and Abacha's time, as terrible as it was. You truly cannot compare it. I mean, you didn't have headsmen roaming around destroying people's farms during Babangida's time. Today, you have headsmen living in the forest, in Igbo land, in Niger Delta, in River State, in Delta State. Even this week, they are killing people in Delta State. I mean, people abroad are horrified that we seem to be able to live with this. That is the people of the South, the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Niger Delta people, the Middle Belt people that have been at the brunt of this thing for almost 30 years from what I've gathered, or even more. So we actually must be bold. We must be strong. And we must say to ourselves, we have to take a stand. And that stand must be, since we, the Fulani are determined that this is the way Nigeria is going to be, we must determine that this is not the way we are going to be.
Thank you.
So if we can't live together, we must find a way to live apart. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sister Ankyo Briggs. That's a fine place to leave it. Then, since we do not have the president of Middle Belt, he hasn't joined us. Hopefully he will still. We will give him time whenever he comes in to address us. At this moment, we will be going to taking questions from the general floor. What's going to happen here, the approach will be, the question is going to be in badges. We're going to take 6 questions. I can see 6 people raising their hands now. Please do not raise your hand now. Allow these people to ask their questions. Afterwards, then take more questions. Now, the following you must note. The questions must be directed to either all the people that made presentation or to an individual. You have only 30 seconds to ask your questions. The first person on the list will be Otumba Olabode, Ejimeka Uzoalo, Chuma Amefula, Abasi Ilukwana, and Ben Aka. These are the first ones we're going to take. So we are going to allow Otumba. Otumba, can you please ask your question? Make it brief.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Brief, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I must quickly say whatever seconds might be too small for any of the people who want to ask questions. But let me quickly say this to the leaders on this forum, especially Adebanjo. Good evening, sir. I'm one of the one of the followers, younger than you, and younger than Dr. John Nwodo, and the other people who have spoken, and also to maybe a little bit older than Yinka. I'm in position to say this, talking about the age. I think millions of Nigerians, especially the younger ones, cannot be interested in all this rhetoric, all this explanation of what has been going on and so on. They are going to be asking questions: how do we resolve? How do we move out from this theodorm? How do we start? How do we start again? This story of this happened 20, 30, 40 years ago. It may not interest most of us. So, and to work towards an arrangement where, if we ask you, are you willing to abide by rule of law? That all the goodwill all of you have, can you use it to start negotiating? Because I have no doubt in my mind that if we have rule of law in place, the feudals, the people who want to rule their own people anyhow, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in south, south, or southeast, or southwest. So what is missing in the whole business of Nigerian project is we are yet to realize that without rule of law we cannot do anything, and it is not a magic. All what we need to do is sit down with, especially you leaders. Again, like I said, I mean, because of the age difference, I can start speaking for the younger ones below you, sir. So with full authority, most of us are willing to see how do we resolve this problem. The way to resolve this problem can only be by bringing by a rule of law. You are all legal-minded, legal-trained people. You know, we make reference to America, Canada, Germany, and everywhere. I've been away from Nigeria since 1970, and I can tell you for free that this country are moving forward. They are doing a lot of great things because there's a rule of law in place. Many people are not interested in all these old stories of Yagasai 70, 30 years ago. No, we need to move on from where we are. How do you want to start engaging people in government to start the rule of law engagement?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So the next person on the list is Ejikeme. Please, Ejikeme, go on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I will start to salute my President General, Chief Nnia Nwodo, and also Pa Ayo, Adebanjo, and Nico Briggs. I hope all of you will remember me very well because I've been in this business for a long time. Now, we have said this. It seems we keep recycling the same sentiment, the same statement, the same everything. What are the actions? We need actions. We need to implement things, not keep talking. The Fulanis are not going to budge. They don't want to give us any room. Either we devolve or devise a means to really engage them in whatever form. And I mean in whatever form. Now, those of us or those we have in parliament or in the Senate or whatever, please organize them and let them start talking and negotiating in the sense that what is going on in the south and southeast and southwest should stop. How can we live there and allow these people to keep invading our areas, killing our people, and we fold our arms and we are keep talking? The president is not interested because he's among them. So I want action. Why I'm asking my question is, what are you leaders proposing?
Okay, thank you.
I know most of the things will not be said openly, but at least the things that can be said openly, let it be said openly. And let's know how all of us can contribute towards that. And that is exactly how we feel. We don't feel good. We don't like what is going on in Nigeria. We don't have to keep talking and commenting and making history.
Thank you. Let's take
so please.
Chuma Ahamefula, go on.
Okay, thank you, Mazi, for giving me the opportunity to ask my question. My question is in two ways. I'm just going to start by thanking Chief John Nwodo and Pa Ayo Adebanjo for being a source of inspiration to some of us. Let me say that what I'm going to say is to reiterate the position already made by some of the people asking questions. How do we move this restructuring debate forward? That's the main question. And if you understand the question of how do we move the restructuring debate forward, the next thing I want to do is to suggest something. Again, some people are probably being economical with the truth. They don't want to suggest something, but let me suggest this. I listened to Adebanjo after he made his presentation. He said a lot of things. And one of the things he said is that he thinks of a situation where the international authorities could be persuaded to compel President Muhammad Buhari to restructure Nigeria. The other point he made is that for us to plead with President Muhammad Buhari to restructure Nigeria, these are the kind of solutions he's proffering with respect to restructuring Nigeria. But I can't categorically say that these solutions cannot work. These solutions.
Please round up with your question, please.
Yeah, these solutions cannot work. What I'm suggesting is, let us try and see a situation where, since the Southeast, the Southwest, and the South-South, we are in agreement that restructuring is required. I want a situation where we take borrow a lead from what is going on in Hong Kong. You cannot achieve anything with somebody who refuses to listen to reason. The only way we can go about this is to see how we can borrow from what is going on in Hong Kong and see how we can start massive demonstration in all these regions. If we do that, I think we are in a position to force the President Muhammad Buhari to assist us with restructuring.
Can you now, Agbase Likanu, you are on. Can you please ask your question? Okay.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear you. Can you please go ahead with your question?
Okay. You see, actually, educated, I think, has touched the question as aspect all the time. I thank Daniel. Thank you very much for letting me know about this today or discussion. I greet Pa Adebanjo and Chido Onumah. I'm from Germany here, and I've been in Germany for over 50 years. And the election of 1959, I participated as a young student that time in the electoral process as a polling officer. Now, you see, my contribution is this, and it's very painful. Every time, like you said, every time with the talking grammar. Number one, with all the things happening back home, there, we have senior advocates, and yet our judiciary is not functioning. We have politicians that some of them don't even know the good to their grandfather's sake. That is what is happening in that country. And that must stop. We have these people, we must let them know that they have no education, they have nothing to contribute, but they want to rule. It does not work. It does not work. The Yorubas and Igbos and Middle Belt and all these and Niger Delta, they must come together and tell them either they choose this or that. Simple as that. And that must be put into action. Finish.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for your contribution. And the next to the last one is Ben Aka. Ben, can you go ahead with your contribution?
Thank you very much. Mine is a contribution.
Ben, go ahead with your contribution.
Can you hear me? Mine is a contribution, actually, not a question.
Okay, what it appears Ben is not ready. Can we have...
I'm ready, I'm speaking. Are you hearing me? I am ready, I'm speaking.
Ben is speaking, go ahead.
What I'm saying is that mine is rather a contribution. The way I see restructuring is that
go ahead.
It is being seen as we to ask for restructuring and the North to accept to give it to us. We must move away from that. We must move away from that. It is our right to take. The Northern people have a system of government that is native to them, and that is feudalism. We have a system of government that is native to us, and that is Republican in nature. Both systems do not mix. We will give them the opportunity to practice their feudalism in the North while we practice our Republican system in the South. And we will stop begging them for it. We must find a way to get it by ourselves. Now, the problem I have now is that our leadership is shying away from sensitizing the public to action. And we have got to the point where the leadership must sensitize the public gradually to action. And until we do that, we will not get to where we are.
Okay.
I'm a leader as well, but there are people who have been given particular positions of leadership that the public listens to them. It is them that we are looking at. There's a lacuna, and that's why the likes of Nnamdi Kanu are coming up with their rascality. Our true leaders must not shirk that responsibility. They must start sensitizing the public, the youths, the elders, and everybody towards this objective. It is no longer a child's play.
Okay.
If we leave this thing this way, our next 2 generations of Southerners will all be Almajiris.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to bring Nnia Nwodo. Nnia Nwodo, you're going to be the last person to ask question on this segment. Then we will go back to our speakers for their contribution.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Dr. Nnia Nwodo, the president of Ohanaeze in the UK. I want to thank President General Chief John Nnia Nwodo and Adebanjo and other contributors. It's a very, very important and time that we are in. Coronavirus is a global problem, but it's brought the whole world to its knees. In Nigeria, it is a catastrophe, and Nigeria is at the precipice of disintegration. If we don't know, action is required. I want to ask, one, why is it that since the handshake across the Niger, which brought a lot of peace, why have the Southeast, the South-South, the Middle Belt, why have you people stopped and waiting for pandemic? We need to start working together to sensitize our people. We need to make public statement. We can't keep quiet. The Almajiris should stop. It has to stop now. The headsmen, they should stop terrorizing the people. The restructuring must happen. We should bring it to the front burner. Those of us in diaspora, we are happy to go to the United Nations, to the Commonwealth, to other places. We are here waiting for you. Time is now. Don't keep talking. Time is now. Let's do something. Otherwise, we won't have no nation. That is what I'm talking. We need to wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. South, Southeast, please.
Thank you very much.
Let's do it and do it now.
Thank you. I will be giving Chief John Nnia Nwodo once more the floor to respond to some of these comments and questions. Chief John Nnia Nwodo, you have the floor now. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Tobe. You started with me. I thought you would have ended with me, but since this is the way you want it. First, let me thank all those who have asked us questions, who have participated, including those who have not spoken, who are following us live on Facebook, or who have logged into this discussion on Zoom. This is very encouraging. I'm sure that for Chief Adebanjo, myself, Yinka, and Dr. Petrus Ogu, who is probably listening but unable to electronically join us. This is most encouraging because we have all the while thought that we were like the John the Baptist in the wilderness. When you say that the leaders have to do something more than we are doing, I just wonder whether you want us to burn ourselves at the stake. Now, it's been nearly 3.5 years that we formed the Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum. It's never existed in Nigeria. We've never had an opportunity in the history of this country when all the leaders of the south of Nigeria, under their organization called PANDEV, all the leaders of Igbo under the organization called Ohanaeze, and all the leaders of the Southwest under the organization called Afenifere. and all the leaders on all the minority groups in northern Nigeria, all the way from Borno State up to Kwara State. We have never had an opportunity when we all came together in one organization. And since we came together in that organization, we have revved the discussion. Do not forget that we started in Ibadan, where Afenifere hosted us. And Afenifere launched their blueprint for a constitutional revolution of Nigeria. They called it restructuring. It was very much modeled after the 2014 Constitutional Conference reports, which was a reconciliation of the diverse views in the country and was acceptable to all parts of Nigeria, which is why they came out with a report that was agreeable by everyone. Now, we had the Ibadan rally. When we finished in Ibadan, we went to Yenagoa in Bayelsa, where the South-South hosted us. The South-South came out with a broad resolution on restructuring of the Federation. And every state in the South-South was represented. Every government in the South-South was represented. They passed a resolution and adopted it. From there, we moved on to Oka. In Oka, we had an assemblage of all traditional rulers in Igbo land, all presidents of town union, all our legislators. In fact, it was the deputy president of Senate and the speaker of Anambra House of Assembly who guided the proceedings. And motions were moved and adopted, seconded, and a vote was taken. And the entire Igbo nation supported the two conventions that had been held in Ibadan and in Yenagoa. And then we agreed to meet in Makurdi. Our plane was refused takeoff in Lagos. Makurdi airport was closed because of this movement to civilian passenger traffic, and has remained closed since then. And I listened to the last speaker say our leaders have been lethargic, they need to bring up the action. I don't know whether you want me to burn myself at the stake. I will not become a Jesus Christ who will be crucified for this. They laid traps for us on the road. We tried to go by road. We got security report that we were all going to be lynched and burnt and killed on the road. We had paid for our chartered aircrafts. We could not land in Makurdi. We spoke to Makurdi rally electronically. Since then, we have had meetings in Lagos, we've had in Abuja. Can you imagine old men like Chief Edwin Clark and Chief Adebanjo when they should be relaxing in their retirement? On one occasion, we went to address the National Assembly, and they gave me a 15-minute notice to speak on behalf of the movement. And I had just read out a press conference written by Odumakin and his committee. And my house was bombed directly after I read the press conference. And I said to Chief Edwin Clark, I said, look, sir, my house has just been bombed. And you want me to go to the National Assembly and speak again? He said to me, look, my son, why do you think that he was then 91? Why do you think that at 91, I should be involved in this? It is because I do not want my children to go through what we are going through today. Why do you think Chief Adebanjo should be involved in this? It is because every father wants to leave behind him a better society. I must say to you that it is not us, but you. I'm not preaching for war because I've been a soldier during the war. And I know that war is the last, it is a sharp-edged tool that supplies man's daily bread and becomes his weapon of destruction when man's Senate Council fails. We must say, lie here until they call you to arbitrate. The only way we can use the instrument of violence is when we have exhausted diplomacy. We are dealing with a very difficult adversary. And I like to say that what the current government represents is not the view of a majority of even the Muslim North or the Fulani North. Look, let's face it. Restructuring is in the interest of the North. Why do I say this? Look, the trending companies in the world today, the companies that do well in the world today are no longer the oil companies. My northern friends told me that we wanted restructuring because we do not want them to benefit from the oil of the South. And a lot of exploration was embarked upon in the North. I would have wished that they saw oil in the North so that nobody will think that it is because we have oil. That's far from the truth. Why do I say that? A bulk of the mineral resources of this country, a lot of it, diamond and gold, tin, come from the North. They are mined every day by expatriates and by local collaborators and not declared in our national revenue. Because of the sheer rule of force, we have shouted at Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum. We, even after visiting General Danjuma, listen to General Danjuma tell everybody to be ready for self-defense. What do you want us to do? Now, the North has the highest agricultural endowment in Nigeria. If you look at the companies that are trending in the International Stock Exchange, which are not computer-based companies, purely digital, like Facebook or Google, they are companies in agriculture using digital technology to leverage on agricultural production. If you listen to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, addressed us the other day on Israeli innovations. He showed us how with drone technology now, you can determine the chemical deficiency of a plant in a farm without a foot on the farm. And you can redress the chemical imbalance by a chemical drone injection without entering the farm. What am I trying to say? Netherlands is the 14th largest economy in the world. It is a territorial area smaller than Niger State of Nigeria. One of the 37 administrative units in Nigeria, if you add the federal capital. But it has 100 billion of food export in a year based on dairy and vegetables. It grows green farms in skyscrapers because of the absence of land. It is the largest exporter of food in the world, larger than the United States of America. Google it, you will find it. The North has this same endowment. So if the idea of reluctance to embrace restructuring is because they want a part of the oil cake, it doesn't make sense. It just shows that we're not prepared to apply our knowledge to our natural resources. Now, the world grows on the basis of diplomacy. Diplomacy is discussion, continuous negotiation. This continuous negotiation has led us to an arrangement of a greater majority of the country belonging to the Southern and the Middle Belt Leadership Forum. What remains is for younger people like you here to exploit this umbrella and develop yourself into a political movement and advance the cause that we represent. I believe you can achieve this cause politically. And if you achieve it, it will give every part of Nigeria its independence in terms of sovereignty of its natural resources, in terms of its security, in terms of development at its own pace. It will also give the larger country, Nigeria, a greater negotiating power. But it is only a first step in diplomacy. When negotiations fail, we will have no choice but to part ways. That will be only a second alternative. And we better do that in peace rather than in war. Because by the time we finish doing it in war, I know that there are a lot of Igbos who are all over West Africa who were taken away because they were kwashiorkor reading children, they were motherless babies, and all the aircrafts that brought us food had to carry them in C-130 planes, and many of them died in transportation because of the steel chambers of those aircrafts. In fact, the president of Gabon today faced a court case that he was not a Gabonese, that he was adopted by the former president of Gabon, and that he's Igbo. But the truth is that he's president of Gabon. But if he's Igbo, we don't even know which part of Igbo land he comes from. There are several Igbos littering across the whole of West Africa today that we cannot reach. I went without food for 3 days during the war. I saw my colleague, a son of a former minister, shot to death by the explosion of a bomb in a trench next to mine. Torn to pieces, and his body was difficult to bring together. The reason why I dramatize this is that I know that we are all very angry. And some of those who have asked questions from London are saying, just tell us what to do and we're prepared to go anywhere you want us to go. But the Yorubas have a word called surulere. In difficult moments like this, leaders have to be extremely diplomatic and tactical. But I do say that, however, if we are pushed to the wall, we will have no choice but to witness a repetition of history. God forbid that it should happen. But what we are doing today brings to the fore the urgency of the moment. As a secondary school student, I went on demonstration in the streets of Enugu wearing a badge, Easterners get ready. As a university student, I went on demonstration in the streets of Lagos, asking Ali to go as minister. I went on demonstration in the streets of Ibadan, asking Gowon to go because he reneged on the promise for 1976 return to civilian rule. What are people of that age doing today? Is any one of them prepared to go to demonstration? You want Chief Adebanjo to come on the street to go to the demonstration? Who do we report to if they harm us on the road? Every generation must take on its historical responsibilities. We must wake up from our backside and take the front burner. Even to go on a suit to represent our views against the federal government, some lawyers, because they are waiting for pecs from the Attorney General's office, are reluctant to be our lawyers. I think Odumakin will tell you how we collect money. We throw in our checks into trays when we go to a meeting. All of you in the diaspora, those of you who are Igbo, how much have you donated to Ohanaeze? How do you expect no motor car built from the best Bavarian motor works can move without fuel? I have never exacted a penny tax from any Igbo man. I see myself having a rendezvous with history. And if the donation of my services and of my life, of my security, is the price I pay for championing the cause of my people, I have no regret. But I have to do it with tact and diplomacy. I have been persistent, and those who are blaming us are probably uninformed. I want to ask you, if you're a journalist, take up your pen. Write. If you're a lawyer, take up suits and champion abrogation of fundamental human rights. Look, our president swore to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to do no ill, favor, or affection to anyone in a biased manner. But what is happening today? Look at all the security apparatus of Nigeria. They are all headed by people of one religion on one side. Look at the oil, the mainstay of our economy. All the major positions in the National Oil Company, NNPC, are headed by people from one section of the country. I mean, well, look, our vice president looks like a bishop without a cathedral. He has no portfolio. Even the humanitarian affairs that he was dealing with has been given to a woman to take care of. We are like slaves in our own country. But this is the anger that brings out a reorganization of society. But we must step out and speak. Those of you who are living in London, have you taken a walk in the streets of London and demonstrated to our embassy and said, enough of this, we can no longer have this? Have you formed your own Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum in London? Have you done so in America? I think the time has come when our anger must metamorphose into positive action. I cannot thank you enough, Tobechukwu, for this discussion.
Hello. What's happened? Sorry, sir. I think your connection is frozen. Okay. So I think if you can hear me, I think Chief John Nnia Nwodo's connection is frozen. So I will use the opportunity to please invite Chief Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, the former governor of Ondo State. I've been told he wants to make some contribution. Please, Chief Mimiko, can you please unmute to do it here, but it's not. Can you try to see if you can unmute yourself, sir? Chief Mimiko, please.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, you can go on now, Chief Mimiko.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to make my own intervention. I must say that I associate with the sentiment expressed by former speakers. Now, I just want to make some issues clear. That whether we like it or not in this country, restructuring is an idea whose time has come. And I will just cite two examples. Security, for example. It is evident to everybody in this country now that a centralized police formation cannot secure Nigeria. And if you see within the last few years, people have metamorphosed in terms of their belief, from those who believe that we do not need state police, we do not need to decentralize the police system, to people now who advocate for state police and even local government police. Because the reality of a centralized, unified government is that we will not be able to secure the nation. So that is an imperative, and it stares us in the face. Now, the other issue which we cannot run away from is deepening poverty and restlessness among the youth, because we are not able to provide them the wherewithal to live a fulfilled life. And within a unified, centralized governance in Nigeria, it is impossible to make it happen. It is so clear. So the need for restructuring, the imperative for restructuring is out there on the streets. Look at what COVID has taught us. COVID has taught us that at the end of the day, what is most important in a nation is investment in human capital. The whole world now is looking up to the scientists to find the solution in terms of pharmaceutics and vaccine to this existential pandemic, existential threat posed by this pandemic. Now, in Nigeria, that is dependent on the mono economy of crude oil. COVID-19, the whole world now is looking at the scientists. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay, COVID-19 has demonstrated conclusively to everybody that the oil economy that is not sustainable. And as a matter of fact, the general lockdown has also proved that COVID-19 and the lockdown has actually improved the quality of air. So for those who advocate to get our act together because of climate change, fossil fuel has also scored a negative point. So what I'm making is that our economy is dependent on oil. It's centralized, and that is why some people probably think we can continue this way. We cannot continue this way. There's population explosion. Look at what is happening in North. The Amajiri system and the population explosion has actually driven even the northern governors to decentralize, as it were. That is all in the spirit of restructuring. The point I'm making is that if Nigeria will not unravel completely, if there will not be complete breakdown of law and order, if the youth will not rise up in arms in this country, we must restructure. And the whole idea of restructuring is that we can improve productivity, we can ensure that in a small enclave, in a smaller enclave, we probably will have the capacity to develop our nations. The truth of the matter is that within the context of Nigeria, where there is inter-ethnic competition, it is almost impossible to throw up the best minds that will have the capacity to develop Nigeria. But when we decentralize, about whatever name we call, restructuring, decentralization, devolution, the chances are that we will be able to create and develop the capacity that will ensure that our nations develop. The whole idea is development, to provide for our people so that they can live fulfilled life. The alternative is for chaos and disorderliness. President General has said it. If we have to take the alternative of violence, the consequence is better imagined. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mimiko. And now, before we get into questions, I would use the opportunity to call on Chief Ayo Adebanjo to respond to the initial questions. If after he finishes that, then we'll take the second phase of that question. And on the line, we have Yahaya. Anyway, so Yahaya, you need to wait. You will come up with when we come in for the second phase of that question. So, Pa Ayo Dele Adebanjo, you are now on. Can you unmute yourself? I think when I unmute you, mute it back. Okay. Yes, you're on now.
Okay.
Yes.
The summary of the contribution of the people from diaspora is that stop talking, act.
Yes.
That challenges them, and my brother Nwodo has already told you that is for you. What are you talking of? There's no government in this country that I have not served under imprisonment of. First generation, I was in the children felony. Second generation, Adebanjo is there, I was there. All fighting for the cause of freedom, for justice and all that. You know, Nwodo told you something. All that we are talking of is sensitizing our people and telling people that by the time violence comes, they will be won. And I've said it in several interviews that those of us who are talking for restructuring, we are the peaceful people in Nigeria who love Buhari, that we want peace. What you people are agitating is already in the country. It is people that can say, I say, no, wait. As Nwodo said, if you push us to the wall, we will fight. And don't want to acknowledge that, yes, we don't want peace, we don't want the violence. When people talk about Kanu, I often say I am a Kanu man, only I don't believe in violence. But what is Kanu saying by saying they want to secede? If you restructure to the Kanu will not talk about secession. But the Kanu continue to be under this injustice. And that was what I said earlier on, the unity that did not, particularly the caliphate represented by Buhari, is the unity of the horse and the rider where they continue to ride us. It will not happen. And we are only saying it diplomatically The restructuring must take place before any election in this country. Whether you like it or not, we are saying it now. I won't go into the street. We are always suppressing people in the Southwest against violence. The Southeast, the Odu and others are suppressing their people. People are ready, but we believe. Let us tell people that those of us who are talking, we don't want the country separated. And to bring said Nigeria was not the government, God creation, but was God creation. Yes, it's a geographical expression. But those of us who are talking of restructuring of federalism, is that haven't joined us together. We have seen the advantage of the economy of state to be together, but not at the expense of one region cheating the other. We walk, bamboo walk, people work for their stadium. You say no. You contribute a penny to the contribution from the North, and you take £1. That is the revenue education. The basis of your revenue now is created by the military. It's the elevation we agreed upon. You contribute to the center. You develop at your own space. That is the principle of federalism. If you want to have your Sharia, your anything, you have the right to do it under your religion. You can't force it on others. But you want to live together and get the advantage of living together. But they want to go further. And it is interesting for those of you who are talking from abroad, saying the people don't want it. We are not asking them. I am one of those who detest the statement saying the Lord will agree to restructuring. I regard it as an insult. Who made the Lord in position to dictate the terms of living together for us? We are only saying this that we want to show that we are agents of peace. What if they force the other side on us? Oh, we will fight. But no one will know that, oh yes, it is these stubborn people from the North who want to reap where they don't sow, who don't contribute anything to the revenue of the country, and then they get the largest one. Those are the people that cause the thing. No one separation. But as one said, if we want to live together, and that will lead to cheating me, then we go our ways. I can assure you that what we are talking about is not that we want to live together by force. We want to build the United Nigeria under an agreeable terms. But if you don't do under one section, oppressing the other, oh, to the child of Israel. There's no doubt about that. All we are doing now is the last stage. And that last stage is for you people who have been doing the contribution, as you want to say, to take it off. Not at 92, not at Black at 94, not Functionality at 94. You come and be on the road. I can't say the number of the time I've been demonstrating. I was a demonstrator before independence. I was a demonstrator when we got to Nigeria as a student. And I want to ask, you are talking of now, how many demonstrations have you done? The ball is in your court. And you have the own leadership, and the facts are giving you to show that we have been cheated, to be the ground for your agitation. We are sanitizing enough, giving all the facts, giving how we started, giving how we are living together, giving you the mode of oppression we are having. And we're asking these people who are oppressing us, don't oppress, we want to live together. But if they continue to be, no, they must rule us by all means, like Buhari is doing. Oh, he will regret it. If he oppressed me, my children would agree. My children would agree. And the generation following me would agree. But we want to warn them, as we want to say, we don't want violence. And we are explaining to them, to say that, oh, in restructuring, we are one another's brother's keeper. But I don't know how the Caliphate just believe that, well, they can do anything and damn everybody. You imagine the way Buhari has been behaving. Since we have been talking about this structuring, even before this election, is that not an occasion for him to go on the radio to tell us, no, this constitution is good. What you are criticizing of, I will do this, I will do that, to persuade people who say they are not satisfied. He pretends as if there is nothing happening. And I will get out with blue border. I have said it. It will not continue.
Thank you.
By the time the time is right, and we are sanitizing you young men enough, giving all the facts that those who we are feeding, who the British join us together in order for them to survive, they cannot come eventually to come and dominate us. It did not happen. And if it don't happen, it is you who are complaining that we don't make it happen. We have shown you the leadership.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful submission. So the ball is on the court. The youth listening, the ball is on your court to take action. So we're going to be going into the second segment of taking the question. On the top of the list is Yahaya Ndo, Chijoke Udechukwu, Brandt, Eze, Amama, Tolu, Ayorinde, and Utsman Onyebande. So please, Yahaya, I'm sorry you've been raising your hand since the last segment. Can you please go ahead now? You are free to make your contribution.
First thing I'd like to say is that the main obstacle to getting the restructuring we talk about is that our leaders are not very sincere and they lack integrity. To start with, the 1999 Constitution that we so dislike, that we want to change with a better constitution that will give us more leverage in the regions or states, was put in place under Abu Salami Abubakar. The Minister for Information at that time, who helped sell it to Nigerians, is the current President General of Ohanaeze, who is talking on this program. Am I correct? Secondly, during President Jonathan, what stopped us from pressing him to restructure Nigeria? The National Conference of 2014, what stopped the three most important things that should have been done for it to make sense? One, why was there no law by the National Assembly to dictate what will happen with the proceeds of that conference? Two, why were the delegates they are not elected? Three, why was the proceeds not even presented to the National Assembly? Now, if we are serious about restructuring, this is the way we should go. We said that the South is the South, the Niger Delta, and the Middle Belt. If that a member of the House of Reps from Southeast, South-South, Southwest, and Middle Belt put down their feet National Assembly that Nigeria must be restructured. Nigeria will be restructured, and nobody can stop it.
Thank you very much.
Buhari government. The representatives in National Assembly are supposed to be the ones we will apply to get to where we want.
Thank you very much, I think your questions are well noted. So I'm going to bring, just for the sake of time, we're running out of time now. I'm going to bring the next person, Brian. Okay. Please go ahead.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, make it very snappy, please.
Okay, I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. My name is Bryant Eziamama Agubalu. I am Assistant DSG in the Youth Department of Igbo World Assembly. I'm based here in Miami, Florida. I would like to greet all the leaders and greet all the industrious and enterprising Yoruba people on here. And I would also like to say Igbo Kwenu to all the Igbos on here. I just have three main topics I want to go over. First of all, Nigeria right now is religio-political authoritarianism. And religio-political authoritarianism being where one religion is dominant over all the other religions. This is even apparent in the Constitution, where only one religion is dominant. And so the fight against religio-political authoritarianism is an important fight in Nigeria. Now, moving on, I would also like to address where we discuss. I would like to discuss God over Nigeria and people claiming that God ordained Nigeria and things like that. First of all, just mainly two religions in Nigeria, and there's two main religions, and we don't serve necessarily one God. So how can God be over one Nigeria when that's confusion? So I don't think that's necessarily true. The last thing I would like to say is that to address the issues that we have in the South, our security issues, we need to develop our economic base. We must also develop a credible threat of use of force, and that we have to do that to be taken seriously. That's just the necessity to be taken seriously.
Okay.
Just time and okay, that's all I would like to say.
Okay,
and
thank you very much.
Yes, Southern unity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on that note, I'm going to be bringing Tolu Ayorinde. Go on now, Tolu.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would first like to thank our elders. My name is Tolu Ayorinde. I'm speaking from New York City. As a public educator here, I've been in this kind of discourse with different groups, and I'm glad when I heard about this. I'm happy to be here. To be honest with you.
Tolu, can you put on your video, please? Put on your video. We want to see you.
Okay. All right. Okay, this is me. So now, my takeaway from this is this: COVID-19, it's like a tidal wave, like a giant tidal wave that has came to suck, water out of the ocean floor in Nigerian situation. It's now revealing all these ugly and uncomfortable realities that we are discussing today. I'm glad we had this opportunity in our generation to discuss this. This is a national discourse, but it's a good thing that we're starting in this forum, okay? And I appreciate our elders that have been telling us what they've been through, the history of the Constitution and everything that has been in the past. But I want to say this, please, it's just my own opinion, that moving forward, from now on, can we, as tomorrow of Nigeria, start this coalition in a more cohesive way, whereby we will have representations to go to the House of National Assembly to place all this in front of them and have this national discourse to everybody and televise, and the whole world will hear us out, then we can hammer on this important issue. The future of our country is in jeopardy. COVID-19 has only come to reveal what is already existing. This has been existing for years. Thank you, Dr. Miko. Dr. I knew you when you were local government chairman. That was when I started following you. And I'm happy to see a lot of our elders here today saying the same rhetorics. So please, my own take to this is, when are we going to just form a coalition that will first initiate this discussion with the federal government? I mean, I know diplomacy works. Let's start from that path. And I want to just throw that out there to be my own contribution. I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the next person is Uthman Oyabanji. Can you unmute yourself? Dan, can you help? It appears no, I'm not able to. What's happening? Okay, if Oyabanji is
I'm looking for, sorry, what's the name again? Othman, isn't it?
Othman Oyabanji. Then Pauline Aneke and Ayola Lawal Obiosuji, get ready. Pauline, please go ahead with your question.
Okay. Hello.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay. This issue we are discussing, good evening, everyone. The problem is not just for the South, because it's now ravaging the North. Katsina, Zamfara, Borno, all up that North Central, Northeast. The youths are now. Sorry?
Can you start your video, please? I've asked you to start your video.
Okay. Can you see me?
No.
Okay, yeah, you have. Okay, I will follow you. Yes.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So the youths of up north are now in Enugu, which is setting the state as a gunpowder. If you come around that artisan area, you see youths who are supposed to be in school, they're all in Enugu now. All everywhere, full of northern youths. And this is a very big problem for us within the state. Their marginaries are coming down. These are children who are supposed to be in school, and we're supposed to be our brother's keeper. And that's what we need to do. So we need to be proactive about this and know that these are human beings also. We need to treat them as human beings, please. Thank you.
Obiosiji, you are on now. After you, Ayola, please.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just 30
okay,
seconds.
fine. Okay, fine. This question is actually directed to Yinka Odumakin. Mr. Odumakin, you're a man that I so much appreciate. You've done so much, even at the time you have come into the scene. I know over time you must have gathered some kind of, experience and knowledge. And the specific question is this, sir. What do you think is the basic things that we can put in place to generate a critical mass of movement, that can begin to jumpstart the realization of our dreams for a more restructured country, Nigeria? Allow me to ask a second question too. The second question is, and I think I would rather want to direct that to Chief Nnia Nwodo. And the question is this: what if the argument is put in place that the problem of Nigeria may not necessarily be about our constitution? What if the problem is actually about the people, those who have various rules to bring about good governance? That is a matter of greed, selfishness, and corruption, and that we don't need to restructure. What would be your take, sir?
Thank you very much. Ayola Lawal, please can you unmute yourself? Ayola Lawal, can you unmute yourself? 30 seconds, please.
Thank you.
Ayola, go ahead with your question.
Okay, my name is Ayola Lawal, speaking from Sweden, Scandinavia. First and foremost, I want to commend and really thank our fathers, John Nwodo and Adebanjo, for their effort upon us. And basically, mine is just kind of a suggestion that already they have already put the ball in our court.
Ayola, please, can you put on your video on, please?
My video is on, right?
No, it's not. Put it on, please. I'm trying to.
Let me just.
All right, it's on now.
Now it's on now. Go ahead. Sorry,
okay.
Before we continue, any other person raising your hand, please, before we actually put on your video, we need to see our faces. We need to see the face of the person asking the question. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think first and foremost, as I've really commended our fathers for their efforts, I think they already put the ball in our courts. We don't need to be going back. When the Yoruba man was there, no restructuring. As somebody from Southwest was the president, no restructuring. And definitely when somebody from the North now in power, who is also a Fulani, who initiated reconciliation committee, but never followed, just jettisoned the report. But now, how do we here, starting from here this night, form a coalition and see how we can move this thing forward? I think that is my own suggestion. How can we form a coalition and take it from where they stop?
Okay, thank you very much. And the last question before we go back to the speakers to treat this question is going to be, let's try once more, Utsman Oyabanji. Can you please unmute yourself and go on?
If Otman will please, if you can raise up your hand, then I can easily identify you.
Utsman is raising his or her hand. Yeah, that's fine, but unable to unmute.
I can unmute it if I can just identify him.
Let's start with THM.
No, I can't see him.
Okay, so can we have Clifford, because Otman is not yet ready. Clifford, can you unmute yourself, please? If you do not have your video on, I'm not going to call you up, please. Clifford,
thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Clifford, speaking from Manchester. My question is to be addressed by Chief Nnia Nwodo. There is a say that charity begins at home. And as people, for example, from the Southeast region, how much or to what extent do our political leadership support this restructuring agenda? I mean the governors, the senators, the House of Representative members, the local government chairman, and every other person holding position of power. How to what extent are they supporting this? The same question applies to the leadership, political leadership from the South-South, from the Southwest, and the Middle Belt.
Okay.
Because, yeah, that's my question. Thank you
very much. So we take the last one. Clifford now is done. Dan, are you able to unmute Otman?
I haven't even seen him. I can't see him. I can see all those who have raised up their hand. I have not seen him.
Raising his hand.
Okay. I
Okay.
used to see him before, but I cannot see him now. I don't know.
Okay. So on that note, I would
let's take the answers then.
Sadly, Chief Nnia Nwodo, while he was addressing us before, I don't know if he's still here because I think his connection has gone out again. So I would now allow Yinka Odumakin to take that question that was addressed to him. Yinka Odumakin, please. Can you address that question that was directed at you, please?
Okay. The question was direct. I think we need to begin to connect with ourselves. For instance, if you are talking about Daniel, who is hosting this event tonight, Daniel will remember how in 2010, how we used to connect in London, the days of Save Nigeria Group, and we're still here today. Chief Nwodo, when he became Ohanaeze president, I put a cloth across to him and said, oh, I'm coming to Lagos. That was how he came to Lagos. We met at Adebanjo's house. Then we had a meeting between South, West, and Southeast, extended to South-South, Middle Belt. Today, we have the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum. So we need to begin to bring having these clusters around these issues that want to progress for Nigeria, and that no section of Nigeria should enslave the other, and that we should make Nigeria an equitable society. For those who have said, oh, you are wasting your time to restructuring, let us dismantle Nigeria. I will say no. Where this is where it starts, from talking, from restructuring. History went to their king. Restructure this polity. Your father used a stronger whip on us. Can you use another one? I said he should come back. When they came back, said, well, my father has used scorpion, has used whips on you. I'm going to use scorpion. And then at that point, it was to attend Oyster. To attend Oyster was not the first thing. Let us talk. Let us discuss. Let us restructure. And that is the stage I think that we are now. But I believe, and I'm convinced, that no section of Nigeria is born to be slave to another section, and we must insist we have free bonds in Nigeria, and that Nigeria should be a country of equal opportunities, equal rights. That we have lived for, and that we must achieve. Thank you.
Can you also, Yinka, before you leave, can you also speak to the question, before I bring Ayo Adebanjo back, the question regarding why the previous government before Buhari was not able to implement I think that question was asked by
yes.
Yahaya.
Yeah, it was asked. Oh, clearly. Yes, well, there have been government before Buhari. I remember in the year 2000, Obasanjo as president, he called a meeting of leaders across Nigeria. The Southwest was led by our leader Afenifere then, Adebanjo was in the delegation. South-South, Southeast, the 6 zones were in Abuja. And the 4 zones, interestingly, Southwest, South-South, Southeast, and and North Central spoke for restructuring, but it's Northwest and Northeast said they are coming back with their own feedback. We've not heard from them to date. In 2005, Obasanjo had what he called a political conference. But under Jonathan, we were able to push until he organized a national conference in 2014. And Chief Adebanjo was at that conference. I was there. Madam Akio Briggs was a delegate. And we had over 600 resolutions. They said we had little time before the elections. Jonathan said he would implement the reports if he became re-elected. He didn't win the elections. That report is still there. Now, the question is that this government also promised restructuring in their manifesto of 2015. But when they came to power, they said they did not understand what restructuring means. So there have been moves and builds. But what we have now is that that issue is not being addressed at all, because the 2015 victory was seen as the conquest of Nigeria. And we are saying that no section of Nigeria has been conquered by any section. We continue to push this issue. These matters are getting to the point of it. And I think the last point I would want to make, if Chief Nwodo is not here anymore, somebody asked that was Abu Salami's minister, and they sold that constitution to Nigerians. Yeah. He is not here. I'm not spoken, but the point I want to make is that as at the time Abu Salami handed over in 1999, there was no clean copy of that constitution. In fact, there was no clean copy to swear Obasanjo in. Nobody knew the content of that constitution. Not talk for anybody sending that constitution to Nigerians.
Okay, so thank you very much. Before I'll bring back Adebanjo, I want our sister Antio Briggs to also address the question by Yahaya that bordered on why could the last government not implement the constitution that you people attended, the constitutional conference that you people attended. Antio Briggs, you have the floor now.
I think that Yinka Odumakin has answered that question very clearly, and I'm sure that Adebanjo will also be able to answer that very simply. He said he would implement, and he didn't come back, and that just goes to show that nobody knows tomorrow. But if you remember, the report was presented in August, September. We finished around August, if I believe, and elections already, campaigns were on fiercely. And like Yinka said, this incoming government or supposed incoming government at that time promised that they would restructure Nigeria. So here we are. Before I go, let me state again that at the end of the day, if we Nigerians from the southern region and the middle belt are not going to be able to stand and categorically say nobody is advocating for a war. I was also caught up in the civil war. I'm surprised that Nnia Nwodo is saying that he's an old man. Him and I were born in the same year, so I don't see that as being extremely old, as not to be able. I think Adebanjo, yes, I agree, but not John Nwodo. Anyways, to be very, very clear on this, I will stand and wait, because it seems like I'm moving fast ahead of people like Adebanjo and maybe my father, E.K. Clark. And I'm sure that at the end of the day, their wisdom will show us that perhaps I have waited and maybe we will catch up, because I sincerely do not believe that this government will take any step to restructure Nigeria. And yes, I do agree that people in diaspora don't appreciate and don't understand that they have a role to play in diaspora. Nobody in their right mind will today get up and say they want to go out on demonstration. If you do so at the risk of your own life. Our representatives, yes, I agree, and I've always said this, that our representatives and the governors at this point in time now, if they didn't know it then, they must know it now, that they have to make the primary decision and make that decision in our favor to call for the restructuring of Nigeria. I believe that the people in power, Buhari's government, will not allow or want restructuring. But hey, let us agree with our fathers that they should go ahead and continue to negotiate for restructuring. I will go in for that, but I also know that they will not accept it. So it will now be where Yinka has said, or Nwodo has also said, well, if it comes to that, then so be it. But I don't think that any one of us today is advocating for war in Nigeria. What we're advocating for is justice and equity and liberty.
Thank you very much. That's a fine place to leave it. I will be bringing Ayodele Adebanjo to now take those questions once more. Sir, you are on the spotlight.
Thank you very much. Before I take that question, I think I would like to make this positive statement about President Jonathan's attempt to restructure the country. A lot of people don't know all the facts. How about the fact that he started it, why didn't implement? Forgetting the fact that it was, of all the former presidents, it was he who took positive steps. Seems to have been shouting for sovereign national conference until because of restructuring. All the government refused to set up the type of constitutional conference that is set up. He set them up, and I still can learn Buhari today. He cannot set up a constitutional conference that is superior in quality, personnel, and intelligence than that constitution. Now, people are very unfair to Jonathan. By the time we finish, as Brick said, how many months for us? And at that time already, the National Assembly has become antagonistic to him. He would do it. And he did one thing which many people, the public, are forgetting it today. When he was handing over to Buhari, I saw it and he said, this is the most important document I'm handing over to you. I hope people remember.
Yes.
But when Buhari got to office, he said, well, he was not going to touch it.
Yeah.
So don't let us forget all this at all. Yeah. It's unfair to be saying Jonathan started it, he didn't complete it. He did his best there, and government is a continuum. And if these people agree that structuring must be done, why are you being technical by saying who set it up? What is the law there? There's no referendum. And I answered by saying, if you believe what we did in 2014 is right, put out what you feel is you don't want there. What you don't agree with. Put in what you agree with and let us move forward. If you are sincere. All the others say, why did he do it? Now, if you condemn the way he set up the Constitution, if you are sincere about setting and restructuring, why don't you set up your own constitution in your body? And I agree to it. But what is not sincere? And I said this publicly. He is not sincere. All the qualities of integrity he lacked. From 2007, he had been promising to restructuring. I can pray for him and Afenifere in 2007. I have said it publicly. Like Adeshino and Garba Shehu, they have not refuted it. And he himself has not refuted it. And when Bakari was going to be his running mate, they promised restructuring. He did nothing. Even under this government, which Tinubu foolishly put us into, for which we are suffering today, there was restructuring of their manifesto. What have they done about it? Even after coming to office, They set up a committee recommending restructuring. What have they done about it? There's no integrity there. Is that the government of deceit, government of propaganda? And as people are talking of what action, we have already given you the ground for action. Nobody wants violence. But when you don't allow constitutional things to, if you don't allow peaceful change, violence will be inevitable. That's a common thing. All that we are doing now is that we have told you. And government, don't be bothered. We are not asking, we are not begging the North to agree to restructuring. We don't want to beg you to be part. We don't want to beg to be part of Nigeria. If you don't want us in Nigeria, we get out. But if you want us in Nigeria, you must agree on the terms on which we are going to live together. Simple. But all that we are doing is that, well, we have done our best. The youth element, all of you are talking grammar abroad, come out and do the demonstration. We shall back you up. If anybody leads to any other thing now that say, if you don't want restructuring, so there is no Israel. There is no, I don't necessarily say that. I have said that not enough.
Thank you.
Buhari can't force this form of government, different form of government on us in this country. And if he does not do restructuring now, that is the end of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, sir. We will be getting to the third phase of this question. We'll be taking questions from Lady Melaine Onyocha, then Oge Ozofo, Chido Onumah. Get ready, please. Lady Melaine Onyocha, please go ahead with your question. Can you unmute yourself, please? Melaine, can you unmute yourself, please?
I tried to unmute her.
Yes, that's fine. She's now on mute. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone, and special evening to my role model, Nnia Nwodo. You're welcome. And I've listened to everyone that spoke. But this is also not a question per se, or should I call it a question to Lady Briggs. Twice you made mention of being so sure they're not ready to restructure. My main question is, have we spoken to any of them? And what is their reason? We want to know the main reason why they do not want to restructure. Whoever that does not like the president now, that does not want to restructure, or the government now, can they tell us exact reason, just one reason why they do not want to restructure? Maybe then we can tackle it from there. That's just my contribution and question.
Hello. Oh, God. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me. Mazi, can you hear me? Okay, well, I mean, first of all, it's not a secret that Buhari said, even before his election, even when Jonathan was president and when we were at the national conference, that he did not believe in the national conference. I think my father, Adebanjo, will confirm that, and so will Yinka Odumakin. So before he even came into government, it was very clear that he doesn't believe in restructuring. And since they've been in government, this APC government has been on board systematically through their ministers, through the Minister of Information, even through the governor of Kaduna State, before they appointed him as the chairman of the so-called restructuring committee to understand what it means. They have made it clear at one time or the other that they are not interested in restructuring. We've been called Professor, gosh, his name is not coming, but he has also said that anybody who is asking for restructuring is an enemy of Nigeria. They've called us greedy. They've called us people who are looking for appointments. The vice president had referred to us, people who are asking for restructuring, as people who are looking for a political appointment. So I think that should make it very clear to us that they do not want to restructure Nigeria, and they've systematically given their reasons for restructuring Nigeria. But like Adebanjo said, if Nigeria is restructured, they will be the major beneficiaries, because if everything you own is going to go to you and you just pay a percentage when we restructure Nigeria, because that's federalism, then they will be the major beneficiary. But it is this attempt to lord it over everybody else that is making them to resist restructuring, because it will give everybody a right to autonomy, a right to self-determination within their state. So, I mean, that's my take and my understanding of it, based on these reasons that I have given to you. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Pa Adebanjo is, Pa Adebanjo, if you can hear me, can you please unmute? I think you're saying something. Pa Adebanjo, I can see you are trying to say something. Can you unmute yourself? Dan, can you help?
Yes. Now,
yes.
Please.
Yes, go ahead.
So that lady asking Breeze, we are just being diplomatic. I have said it openly before. I don't fear anything. I'm already 92. Buhari will not restructure this country because the Northerners are the beneficiaries of this awkward constitution. I have said it before. He is not interested. And if you remember, the moment he came in, he said the document of 2014, he has thrown into the archive. All this question we are talking about is just to expose him. I have never believed that he's going to do it. Yeah. And I've said it before. When you talk of so the lady asking the question, have you ever asked him of something? He's not interested. All the campaign we are doing now is to convince our own people too, who are being led falsely to think that there's savior Buhari. If Buhari is only interested in dominating this country, like the caliphate will do, but we want to forget the past. We want to look forward. But the more we say it, the more it confirms our own position that he's not interested. For example, the lady had the question. All the time we have been talking about this structure since he came into office. Has he ever made a public statement about it? To assuage those of us who are agitating for it, that no, it is not necessary. Like somebody said earlier on, he was going to ask Nnia Nwodo whether this constitution is the constitution, the problems are constitution, is whether the constitution or the people running. It is the constitution. If you people take your time to find out what is in this constitution, you know why we are talking. Time does not allow us to go into everything. Under this constitution, Buhari is the most powerful president in the whole world. He will not like to give that up. Under this constitution, they decided how to divide our revenue. Under this constitution, they created states and local government at their own pleasure. Ask them, what is the measure of the number, the way they created states in the country? How did they create local government? So they said that they have that number. It's all arbitrary. But we don't want violence. That is why we talk of sovereign national government. Let us sit down. When you military force yourself to office, then you want to go. Give us the chance to go back to where we started. And that is the origin of the Sovereign National Conference. That is the origin of the structure saying, well, let's agree. If you want to live together, some people are talking now. If you are sincere about it, let us agree to live together. If you are going to live together, what are the conditions of living together? You can't go to any company without agreeing on the memorandum of association. And all these things we are talking of is so they show that we are apostles of peace. But if peace will not go, as I've said, the question of separation is automatic. The question of secession is automatic. But we will have done our best to show that we don't want to go, but if you want to force slavery on us, we will reject it.
Thank you very much. Chido Onumah, please, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, Chido Onumah. After Chid, Ogozofo.
Thank you very much for having me. I'd like to commend you guys for this wonderful initiative. Just a few preliminary points. I think this fixation on Buhari doesn't help this conversation. I mean, restructuring had been on before Buhari came to power, and I'm sure it will be on when he eventually leaves power in 3 years' time. So we should look beyond Buhari and remain focused. But also just to highlight the point that Chief Adebanjo made, which to a great extent was the position taken by Chief Bola Ige, which I think is fundamental in understanding the whole concept of restructuring and what needs to be done, and which is we need to determine whether we want to stay together as one country. And if the answer to that is yes, then it's followed by the next question, under what conditions. But in also addressing that question, we shouldn't make it an issue of we versus them. I think we need to make clear our position on what, for those who are pushing restructuring, and I've been writing about this, I've written 3 different books on my position, so to say, on restructuring. We need to, I personally do not think that Nigeria can be restructured along ethnic nationality lines any longer. There are those who believe that. So my recommendation is perhaps we can agree on having a minimum program or a minimum agenda for restructuring, which we can push across the country, north, east, south, west. We're talking about resource control, we're talking about citizenship right, and so on. The idea, in my own estimation, is that we want to build a modern egalitarian society, which will be beneficial to everybody, whether you are in the north or in the south. So there are a lot of things that we need to go into this restructuring conversation. I think it's important that perhaps maybe we set up a committee or something to provide a minimum program or a minimum agenda that seems to bring these issues under one platform that is clear, that people can comprehend, and I'm sure at the end of the day will be acceptable to the greater majority of Nigerians. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, okay, Ozofo, can you now ask your own question?
Thank you also for Oge. It's my name. I'm speaking from Germany, and I'm the coordinator of Ndi Igbo in Germany. It's unfortunate that our dear Nnia Nwodo is not more there, but it looks that the whole issue we are talking about boils down on the old story of who is going to bail the cat. Our dear respected Ayodele has told us categorically that this present administration is not going to restructure. And the last speaker has actually touched on so many good points. I want to speak from the side of my brothers in the Southeast. We have been ravaged with a lot of economic sabotage and political intimidation. And I think this supersedes the general talk of restructuring in Nigeria. And that makes the problem in Southeast special, because we have a school of thought who believe that, just like some of us have already said here, that it doesn't make sense to start talking about restructuring because it's not going to happen. So the best way is to have a referendum. And my question is, especially to Yinka, if I say the name correctly, or the Ayodele, does he have any idea why it is difficult for somebody who is at the helm of affairs to pay attention to this question of referendum? That is also one of the people's rights to do. And that is a double-edged sword for those of us in the Southeast. we're talking of restructuring. It's general, and one can itemize it into a lot of economic activities. The international airports that is not there in the Southeast, the depleted infrastructure, I don't want to name all of them, the economic activity that is centered in Lagos, the lack of any operating wharf in the whole of Southeast, even though everybody knows that the Igbo man is, all what he does is business. So when you put all this in together, then the question is, as one of the contributors has said now, what are the process we're going to do to even get somebody to listen to this referendum appeal, not to talk of the general restructuring? Politically, we don't have a way out. Sorry, I got interrupted. Hello?
No, continue speaking now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what I'm trying to say is that the Southeast has really had it the worst for a long time. And as Nnia Nwodo has said, the civil war has not ended for us. Our parents down home and our sisters are being, I don't want to use the dirty word, but you know what I mean. They are being subjected to the most inhuman treatment one can endure in a political setup where everybody's supposed to be in the same country. So my question is, restructuring and referendum, which of them does Pa Ayadele think should take priority right now? And what does he think should be the political mindset of the Southeasterners?
Thank you very much, Ogechukwu. Now I am going to bring in, I believe that's Dr. Okenwa. Dr. Okenwa, if that is who I'm thinking, Okenwa Nwosu, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question? Make it brief, please. Dr. Okenwa, you have the floor.
Am I loud now?
Yes. Is that Dr.
Okay.
Okenwa Nwosu?
Yes, that's him. That's him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, kudos to you, Maazị, okay, for pulling this off. I think this is a beginning of what needs to be done repeatedly. And Nnia Nwodo had left, but
I think he's back. He's back on.
Okay. Our mutual friend, Chubo Kadibo, should be very proud of Nnia performance, especially today's performance. But that's the contribution from my Yoruba brethren and Pa has been very encouraging. What I wanted to ask, and maybe, well, it's actually a question. I've heard about the focus on the Constitution as the problem. So if the Constitution is the problem, what do you think is the best way to take the Constitution down so that we can bring up a new one? Because some people think that you do it through the National Assembly. Some people think it has to be done through the normal way, as our elder statesman had said. And I also listened to Ankyo Briggs. I don't know if any of you is familiar with the proposal made by the Movement for New Nigeria about the devolution of the country into the Sharia North, the Middle Belt, the Lower Niger, and of course the Yoruba Federation. And of course, proceeding to that by taking down the 1999 Constitution, which everybody agrees is a fraud. If it's a fraud, why should we tolerate imposition of a fraud? So I think we should all focus on doing that because we can get the sympathy of the West. I live here in the United States, of course, but I've paid my dues in Nigeria. I was there during the 80s and 90s before making my second missionary journey. But the sympathy we are going to generate by saying that we are resisting imposition of a forged, fraudulent constitution. We can walk in anywhere and make this case. But it looks like we're afraid to say. I think we should take on the Constitution in a civic manner. If you are demonstrating, don't demonstrate because you don't have good roads, you don't have electricity, because you don't have those because the Constitution is crafted in a way that you can't have any of those. So anyway, my question is, what do you all think about the proposed constitutional force majeure to take down the fraudulent imposed Constitution of 1999?
Okay, thank you very much. I will take two more questions before we go back to the speakers to answer these questions. I will take Ken Oguzie. Ken, Ken, can you take it quick? Ken, you're on.
Okay, all right. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Mazi, for the opportunity, and thank you, Adebanjo and Chief Nwodo for joining us. So I just have a quick contribution, or more like just throwing something out there, which I've been thinking about, especially whenever we get into this discussion. So there seem to be a lot of consensus or discussions around how, the North, particularly, they are not fans of the restructuring. But I think one thing I think we also need to ask ourselves is, what is the reaction or what is the position of some of the Southern elites, knowing fully well that the present government was aided by a lot of individuals who are beneficiaries of the present system which we have in Nigeria. So I think if we continue to discuss restructuring at some of the levels where the conversations are going without necessarily checking what is the pulse or what are the views of some of the Southern elites who have the capacity to at least move those discussions at a certain level, some of them representing us at the different chambers in Nigeria, then we might necessarily have not really started finding very productive ways around it. So I think there needs to be some level of accountability in terms of each of our representatives. What is their stance? What are some of the power brokers who have certain levels of influence? What is their stance on restructuring? Instead of us looking at it as more like things that are being done at the level which we are talking about now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Then the last person on this segment is going to be Folarin. Folarin, can you go ahead? Can you unmute yourself and ask the last question before we can get back to the speakers, please? Folarin, go ahead. Go ahead, you're on. Okay, if Folarin is not ready, can we take Okwa Gwaranwata? Go ahead. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, hello.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. Please, my name is Chief Anthony Okukaogo, yeah? And I'm live from Liverpool in England. What I wanted to add in all this, I've had the discussion, I've been following the discussion ever since. But I just want to say that these our leaders that we've got, Chief Nnia Nwodo and the power itself, you guys have been doing a wonderful job, and I want to commend you to continue doing that job that you have been doing. What I want to say basically is to Chief Nnia Nwodo. Anyone you were speaking, and you talked about, you know, different ways you people have had meetings, how they bombed your place and every other thing. But please, I wouldn't like you to stop the struggle you are going through because of that. Every leader is elected, and once you have been elected, you have to sacrifice for your people. And that is what we call a leader. You know, leaders do sacrifice. And please don't be afraid. They will threaten you. They will do all sorts of things in order to withhold you back in the leadership that your people have elected and entrusted in you. Keep doing what you are doing. Keep pushing. If it is not you, it might be for your generations to come. And it's very, very important. So I know we have stayed too long in the meeting, and I would just like to leave it there now and say thank you very much.
Thank you very much once more. Chief Nnia Nwodo, can you now please respond to this? And every other person, I think there are people raising their hands for the second time. Sadly, we are coming to the end of this segment. I will want to give Chief Nnia Nwodo the opportunity to summarize and answer those questions. Then we'll bring back Adebanjo, then we'll wrap it up. Nnia Nwodo, you have the floor. Thank you, sir.
I take it that you can hear my voice, can you?
Yes. We can.
Yes. I apologize that I was out of transmission. I have actually moved from my desktop to my telephone.
It appears your telephone is even better.
Really. I want to thank you all for your active participation and for the fact that you all brought in your convictions, your commitments, and thank you for all the compliments. I noticed Gentleman Ndu said that I was minister under Abubakar and that I was part of the making of this constitution. I think his reading of history is upside down. The constitution was headed by a panel, was done by a panel headed by Justice Nikki Toby. It was not appointed by the Executive Council that I belong to. It was appointed by a Supreme Military Council. It gave its report to the Supreme Military Council. I did not participate in its deliberation. I'm not party to it. I have opposed it from that time till now. I have no executive collective responsibility in that constitution because the Supreme Military Council was the lawmaking organ of the government that I served as minister. The Executive Council never entertained one memo on that constitution. So I could not have farmed in a land that I did not enter into. Having cleared that, let me say that what is obvious from what we are talking about today is that we are all agreed that the only condition in which we can continue to remain in this entity called Nigeria is that that constitution should be revisited. And that our various parts of Nigeria that signed up for independence must be allowed to go back to the conditions under which we signed up for independence, namely the sovereignty of the various areas in their mineral resources as well as their domestic security. And that what holds us together was the common issues like customs, immigration, external defense, to which we can contribute equally. Now, having said that, how do we get through this? Now, reaching a consensus in politics is not a very easy thing. Ordinarily, the best way to reach it is to fight for elections on the basis of these views. And if the party that supports this view wins, then it will implement it. And sadly, the party in government today had in its constitution the restructuring of the federation and went ahead to set up a committee headed by the governor of Kaduna State, Governor El Rufai, which recommended that there should be reversion of all oil wells to the states, and that the federal government should only own the ones on our continental shelves. There should be domestic police. Every state should have its own police. His views triumphed in his National Executive Council. But sadly, when the president was accosted by it in a public press conference, he says that our problem is process, not constitution, whatever that means. So this is akin to a military dictatorship in which a man abandons the manifesto under which he was elected into government, abandons the will of his National Executive Committee, as expressed by a committee it's appointed, which reported to it, and it upheld its report. There is this feeling that we are really not practicing true democracy in Nigeria. You know, because if we are, the party would have held the president accountable for abandoning their manifesto. Now, if this is not possible, what we are doing as Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum, you should support us by your various organizations standing up for the resolutions we have taken in our various areas. A majority of the people of this country have declared for restructuring. They have held rallies in various parts of the country with all their leaders and proclaimed for it. There can never be 100% agreement. There may be some people in the Southeast who do not support restructuring, but the majority do. And politics is all about review of the majority. The majority must have its way. Now, if we can take our political system more seriously and have young people get into it and ensure that the parties live up to the democratic requirements of their existence, we will be nearer to the solution. If those we elect to the legislature exercise the mandate given them by our resolutions and keep to it, we will have a majority of this country talking for restructuring. However, we will continue to seek diplomatic ways by meetings, by conferences, by, if possible, legal challenges in court as to the validity of our extant constitution. Unfortunately, our courts are appointed by the executive. Even our Chief Justice is removed without compliance with the procedure for removal. And so you can see a country in dire straits, only held by the sheer will of God. All the factors that should keep a country together have disappeared in Nigeria. The wonder is how we have survived until now. It is difficult for our children to believe that there was a time that we had order. When I was discussing education the other day in the television, I told them that I went to a primary school where my classmate was the junior brother of my father's driver. There was no school for the minister's son and another one for the driver's son. The standards were equal in all public schools. Chino Achebe went to a local school, primary school in Ogidi. Wole Soyinka went to a local primary school in Ijebula and in Ogun State. But they became Nobel Prize winners. They became world-class international professors. Now, the point is that we must take Nigeria back to that stage where truth will be valid, where superiority of argument will prevail, where the common good will endure. I went to University of Ibadan, and I was elected president of Students' Union in a Yoruba-dominated university. And it was just after the war. The very year the war ended. The war ended in 1970. I went to Ibadan in 70-71 session. And the Yorubas voted for me against the Yoruba man. You would have imagined that coming after the war, tribal differences and feelings would have been at its uppermost, at its maximum at that time. But not for the urban and cosmopolitan Yoruba people. In the same way, they made Zik leader of the City Council of Lagos. They made Mbono GK deputy speaker of Lagos. And Zik almost became premier of Western Nigeria. Our youth must come together and be united in ideas. Ideas rule the world. Today, Italy has found a cure for COVID-19. And China claims to have found a cure yesterday. It's not a matter of where you come from, it's a matter of what you profess. I do hope that Tobechukwu and his colleagues will not stop in this commendable effort to promote discussion on these issues. The more we discuss about it, the more we will be able to assuage the feelings of our fellow countrymen and women who have very misguided and false impressions of the concept of restructuring. The truth cannot be hidden. It cannot be hidden for too long. As Igbo say, when you are preventing a child from taking what belongs to him and you raise your hand up so that his height will not attain the object,
at some point, your hand will be weak and you'll bring it down. No matter what our president and those who support him do, they will be tired of obstructing the will of the people. The time for a radical restructural change has come in our country. Those who oppose it are wasting their time. Our children are already impatient. They are rearing to go, and it's not limited to the Southeast. It is all over Nigeria. The country can no longer meet the aspirations of its people because of governance. If we do not address governance, our country will fail and fail disastrously. And God forbid that it should happen under our watch. I thank you all for your contributions. I urge you to be steadfast in your conviction. I urge you never to give up. This is the time for warring with our minds, and we must give it our best. Thank you for this opportunity.
So thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that wonderful concluding statement. We will be bringing back.
Well, this okay. I don't know what your plan is. This is now 9 to 10.
Yes.
And I think we will be rounding up. And
we are rounding up and bringing Adebanjo for his concluding statement.
Excuse me, Mamazi. Before we bring in Adebanjo for his concluding statements, we are not going to take any more questions now. The time is running out. If I will ask a few questions, which I think maybe some people have tried to bring out, but if I'll make it clear so that they will not give their concluding statements. One, there was, in a forum I belong to, I asked a question. Is there an organization in Nigeria dedicated to fighting for restructuring? Somebody said, well, we have Ohanaeze, Afenifere, and so on and so forth. But I said, those are socio-cultural organizations. Have the people talking about restructuring say, okay, let us form one organization, and this organization is dedicated to fight for restructuring in Nigeria. That is one. Second, from comments, it's being assumed that the Northerners generally oppose restructuring. But in our last week conference, we had Adamu Garba spoke so passionately of restructuring Nigeria by amending the constitution. We also listened to even Alhaji Tanko Yakasa. I said he favored going back to the 1963 constitution. So my question is, have the organizations like Ohanaeze and Afenifere tried to identify core Northerners who believe in restructuring and said, if they are governors, how do we cooperate with them? If they are not governors or in elected positions, but they are politicians, how do we get those people elected in their states? What help can we render them so that when they get into office, they may fight for restructuring? My third question is, we assume someone has asked, what is the position of Southern legislators about restructuring? Have Ohanaeze, Afenifere, and South and Middle Belt Forum identified Southern legislators who believe passionately in restructuring, but are maybe constrained by the system, and say, how do we work with you guys to achieve restructuring? Have they identified Northern legislators who believe in restructuring and say, how do we work with you guys to achieve restructuring? My fourth question is, when people talk about restructuring referendum, in law, we have what is called ground norm. And the ground norm we have in Nigeria now is the Nigerian constitution. There is nothing you can do in Nigeria now without being based on the constitution. So if you are saying break down the constitution, effect change, referendum, it must be grounded in the constitution. So the only thing you can do is, if you think that the 1999 constitution does not allow you to restructure, the only thing you can do is to fight to amend the 1999 constitution. So the only people who can amend the constitution are National Assembly. Are all those fighting for restructuring say, let us identify the senators, the House of Representatives who believe in restructuring and say, how do we help you guys to amend the constitution to help us achieve our aim? the final question I want to ask in this regard is, okay, if we don't have politicians in elected positions now in the Southeast and the Southwest, is there anything we can do to help the young men to get elected who will fight for restructuring? What can we do towards that? If you are saying, okay, those in diaspora contribute money, if we contribute good money, who are we going to give it to? Is there any organization that is existing and say, let me give a final, sorry, please, let me talk about Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu is able to get funds because he is a single person fighting for one agenda, one single agenda. And so people look up to him at this single agenda. This one man, we are giving you money to do this. So if you say, okay, restructuring, is it possible to have one single person in Nigeria say, this is the symbol of restructuring in Nigeria. This is the organizational symbol of restructuring in Nigeria, so that everybody who wants to support restructuring, fund this man, give money to this man, and we will make sure that we hold him accountable, that every money you contribute is being used for restructuring. Can we now say, okay, these are the steps. If we want to achieve restructuring in 5 years, this is what we are going to do in the next 6 months. This is what we are going to do in the next 1 year. This is what we are, because it cannot fall from heaven. There must be step-by-step actions to be taken to achieve this. Has this been done? Have we laid down the steps that will lead us to restructuring so that we can start doing it?
Thank you very much, Dan. So I don't know, between Nnia Nwodo, Chief Nnia Nwodo has already given his concluding statement. I don't know if he would want to address that question once more before we go to Adebanjo. I think it's getting late now.
No, to be honest with you, I don't believe in setting multiple organizations. Political movement for an issue like restructuring must be a movement that speaks for the people. The leaders of almost 5 zones or 5.5 zones or 4.5 zones of Nigeria have spoken up, and they formed an organization. And the basis of the Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum is restructuring. And in all these organizations, there are intellectual wings, there are youth wings, there are women wings. There is plenty of room for people to belong to. And to lead it in their various political parties. You cannot have one person come out in Nigeria and say, I'm the apostle of restructuring. Well, this is not a dictatorship. It's a democracy. No, it's the way we got independence was that a number of people got together in Lagos and they began to talk about independence. And from there, they began to form political parties and began to wager for it, began to elect people who confronted the colonial powers. A number of people must be ready to come into the political arena and help these socio-cultural organizations. What can be greater than the leaders of all the zones meeting in their place and taking a resolution? This is where we stand. I mean, of course, there were bound to be people who disagree with this, but the bulk of the majority of the people say we want to restructure them. What is important now is to give it legs and hands. And this is part of what this program is doing, which is why we're all keeping awake to make sure that we use it to firm the movement. You can start a diaspora organization or Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum. You can launch them in every town that you are in and dovetail into the national organization and become the instrument for the structuring of our federation. We can begin, as we're already doing, when we were forming this organization. There are a number of Northerners who do not belong to the various zones that represent the Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum who agree on restructuring. And they have been approaching us now and discussing about how to work with us. And we're encouraging them to form a zonal arrangement in their areas that disagrees with the orthodoxies in those zones so that we can admit them to work with us. If you have a better organizational template, we are very willing to consider it. independent of the cultural organizations. Because the important thing is for us to get at the target. It doesn't matter how many organizations are doing it. But this is a political question and it must be solved politically. But do not forget that you can take a horse to the stream, but you cannot force it to drink water. This is politics. Gandhi got independence for India by passive resistance. It was not a violent movement. The people of India decided not to go to work and not to do anything anymore, and they paralyzed the country far more effectively than COVID-19 has paralyzed the world. It may come to a time when the people of the Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum decide that if you don't want us to be restructured, we do not want to participate in any fora called Nigeria, whether it be National Assembly, whether it be common services of any type. And once we do that, that will be the tilting point.
Sorry, can you unmute him?
The necessary decisions that will alter our constitution and give us restructuring. Let us hope that this happens as quickly as possible, because the patience of our people is getting very, very, very weak. We have reached what we studied in chemistry in elasticity, which is called the Hooke's law. We have reached the point of elastic limit. Our patience has been drawn to its maximum. I hope that I have in any way covered your issues.
Thank you very much. On that note, we thank you once more for that eloquent submission. We will be, concluding with Ayo Adebanjo. Sir, you are on now. Can you please give us your concluding thoughts?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It appears some of the contributors from abroad, they are new students or agitators for Nigeria's independence or for democracy. They don't know the history of this restructuring. And they're asking us, how do you get about it? Or why have you not done it? It has been all there. The way to do it constitutionally and peacefully is calling a conference, as we had in London, that gave back to 1954 Constitution, that led to the 1960 Constitution by the leaders of the people. And that is why we are emphasizing, let's go back to it. And people should, I think you should be educated and listen to this. When you are talking of how do we get out there, we have been talking of sovereign national conference since the military wanted to go back to barracks. They came by force, and when they were going back, that was what led to Nadeko talking for sovereign national conference, led by Afenifere, that we don't want force, we don't want violence. If you people are going back to the barracks, let us go back to the constitution you met us. And if you don't want to go to that, let us meet together, whether we are going to live together or not. So those who are talking from abroad, please listen to this, because you are all agitators after maybe many of you are just 30 or 40 or 50. We have been on this struggle since 1950. That was what led to agitation for sovereign national conference at the time the military said they want to go back to the barracks. It was on that basis we the Alliance for Democracy contested the election. We won only 6 states. Because one lady was asking, how do we get it about? The man talking of going back to the National Assembly, because that's the only constitution. You are talking with contradiction in terms. The National Assembly that you have now is set up under a constitution we say we don't make. It is not our constitution. How can you ask us to amend the constitution which you say is not ours? Because that is the logic there. This assembly cannot. This is not a question of making an amendment. The constitution is a surgical operation. We must sit down as we did in 2014 to agree on whether to live together and how we are going to live together. It's fundamental. So anybody asking the question, how do we do it? That is the way to do it. That is the way Boy said no. That is what the way to do it. Outside that is violence. Because you are asking, how do you do it? You must go through the constitution that they have, because that's the only constitution. That's the constitution imposed on us. How can you ask me to go to amend the constitution which I'm opposing, or to give me the constitution I want, the constitution that imposes on me? It's illogical. So the question you have to do is, let anybody who wants it agree on the sovereign national conference, and that sovereign we are talking about, OBJ was there, and he said there is only one sovereignty. I said, what sovereignty have you got? And that was what Ango said. He didn't know it is that constitution. It was written by the military. How can you bind us by what you don't take part in? So if you want us to be bound by the constitution, and don't forget, this is why the late William said, this constitution is a fraudulent document. You refer to it as our constitution. Did you make it? You say, we, the people of the Federal Republic, are we Republic? Are we federal? So everything in our constitution is fraudulent. So that is why we let us have the constitution conference to make our constitution that will be responsible to us and subject to referendum. There's no question of assembly made under a fraudulent constitution or under an imposed constitution to decide how we are going to live together. It was the military that made the constitution. So for us to abide by the constitution, to make the constitution responsible to us, we must make it. This is the constitution made by the military. Our contention is that we are not going to abide by that. We are not going to amend any constitution that is opposed to us. We are going to make our constitution representative. So those who are asking, how do we do it? So that is why we will do the campaign of doing it constitutionally. Those who are talking of how do we do it? The alternative is violence. And that's what I said, that if you don't restructure the country, that's the end of Nigeria. Because it's under restructuring, under Congress, under which we agree, as we had on 2014, that we can live peaceably together. 2014 puts all together all that we need. We passed 600 resolutions there, agreed unanimously. All the difficulties, religion, and everybody forgot it. And we are represented by the best Nigerians can produce. In all the religions, age and everything, labor, judiciary, industrialists, everything we are there. Why don't you go by that? And if you say no, all right, set up your own. You cannot ask us to be amending the constitution that is imposed on us. It is not acceptable. So anybody talking that we ought to have must go by the president legislature. No. The president's legislature is a product of what we want to amend. The corruption in the country is made in the constitution, and the president legislature are the products of the corruption. They cannot do it. Somebody was asking whether the governors are with us on restructuring. They cannot be with us. All the constitution, all the corrupt elements in the constitution, they are the beneficiary. By the time we review the constitution, a lot of what they are enjoying will not be there. How can we have a constitution where a senator or a legislator is earning more than doctors and lawyers and all that? Whereby a legislator that got into office by corruption. So forget the question of this constitution amended by the constitution. They don't get the right thing. The foundation there is wrong, it's fraudulent. The present constitution and the assembly is fraudulent assembly. And let anybody come out and tell me that we made that constitution. And why do you want to bind me by a constitution I say I don't like? And why do you want me to amend the constitution to suit me by the provision of a constitution that I'm against? That is the question for those who are asking us to, how do you do it? How you do it is to bring pressure, as Nwodo has said. Join us. These governors you're asking us, they are not with us. It is that southern leaders that are rallying on our people. Because the present government, the present officers of government are the product of the inequitable constitution. And they will not like this to change.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that wonderful submission. I know many of us would want this conversation to continue, myself too. I mean, it's a conversation that we must keep driving, and it's a conversation that we must keep pushing. As I said at the beginning, we have had so many people, and today I'm thanking once more Chief John Nnia Nwodo, the President General Ohanaeze Igbo, and Pa Ayo Adebanjo, Elder Statesman and Afenifere leader. In our midst today, we have Yinka Odumakin, former Governor Olusegun Mimiko, Ankyo Briggs, Chido Onumah, and my moderator today, Daniel Elomba. Myself, I remain Mazi Tochukwu Ezoke. On that note, I will say thank you for joining us today. Keep a date with us. Next Friday, we are working on expanding that conversation. If everything works out fine the way we plan, we might be having the former Emir of Kano, that is Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, to join us here. That conversation must continue. We must see how we can utilize the opportunity we have today, being offered to us by COVID, to drive this national conversation that is not happening today. Somehow, we must get to the destination. Thank you, everyone, once more. Thank you for those joining us from all over the world, those watching us from online, YouTube, Facebook. Thank you for keeping a date. Sorry, we have to end this conversation here because it's been 3 hours and people have to go to bed. I know our elders. I can't thank you enough. Thank you once more for joining us. Okay, now I'll say good night, everyone. Remain blessed.
Good night.
Good night.